Welcome to the official launch of LoopLess. Kabir is the CTO, I'm the CEO, and we have a lot of other people from the Chicago area. This is the Sears Tower in the background, and we're at Northwestern right now. We're going to explain what LoopLess does, what it's going to do, and what it's done so far. Kabir, do you want to get started? Introduce us.
Yeah. So I'm the Chief Technology Officer. I was responsible for the primary development of the app. Now, LoopLess is a screen addiction app that uses cognitive behavioral therapy to treat people's screen addiction, basically. So there are already screen addiction apps like Opal or ScreenZen or OneSec, but what all these apps are missing is an actual therapeutic or psychological approach to treating screen addiction. Because more than anything, that's what addiction is. It's a psychological trap. So what LoopLess does differently is it incorporates, researched cognitive behavioral therapy techniques in addition to traditional blocking and limits on certain selected apps. But it does so in a way that teaches the user to continually learn from their addiction and to continue to treat that, right? So, apps like Opal exist, right? But they don't really address that problem. They don't ask the user, what is going wrong or like, why did you open that app? They simply just block, and that's where it ends. But that doesn't address the deeper issue, and that's what we're hoping to change at LoopLess.
Exactly. So we started in spring break, where I was thinking about screen addiction app ideas, and I heard a podcast from Alex Slater, the CEO of Quitter, just talking about how effective Quitter has been, and that's what inspired me to actually do something for screen addiction. And so Kabir joined shortly after. We recruited other people from the Chicago area, and we've expanded into California and some other states to get people to help us out. So we started off with screen addiction, and we did a lot of psychological research for about 2 months. Since about April 1st, that led us to discover that there's so many different app categories that can get cognitive behavioral therapy and other psychological techniques applied to them that'll make them more effective. So we're looking to expand into vaping, gambling, all sorts of other addictions, and we're going to treat them with the same app technology that we already have. So we have tons of intellectual property relating to different addiction treating and treatment methods. We're going to apply that, and so LoopLess might not be the first, it's going to be the first, but it's not going to be the last app that we make. And so LoopLess LLC has expanded into such a larger company than we ever imagined back in April, and we're really proud of that.
Right. And, with this expansion, we've had countless new ideas, not only being applied to these other apps we're making, but those apps have also kind of reflected back on the original app, LoopLess, right? Because when we're looking at, a gambling addiction, right, there are a lot of techniques there that can still be applied to screen addiction or a vaping addiction or any other type of addiction like Zach mentioned. So, this has really just been a tremendous learning process for all of us. And, later on in the episode, we're going to be discussing a lot of the hurdles that we went through on both a technical and an organizational level to get the app going and, kind of what the app is going to look like and how it's going to be, how our trajectory for the future as a holding company and as and in terms of the original app. So.
Exactly. So we'll talk a bit about our backstories too. I'll go first. I got into SaaS, software as a service, and apps kind of as a result of my interaction with other people. So I built an unblocked games or proxy or whatever. I shouldn't mention that. I built a cool math games competitor in middle school called Caswire.com, and I got over 3 million users since freshman year of high school, and that led me to meet a bunch of other business owners in the space, and one of them was Zach Categari. So I worked with him in 2023 before he got into apps, and I just networked, and I met him, and I met a bunch of other app creators and a bunch of other software creators, and so I was there before Cal AI was a thing, and just working with these other creators and these other entrepreneurs in the space really inspired me. And so when Cal AI launched, I was stuck in the website space. I was stuck in the thinking that if I already have a business model that can make a few $1,000s a month, why expand? But then I saw the success of Cal AI, and I saw the success of Quitter, and all these subsequent B2C app companies. And that's when I realized we can do it too. And I think LinkedIn's becoming the next, I don't know about you, Kabir, but I think LinkedIn's becoming the next Twitter. In a sense
For
where
sure.
a lot of people are really talking about their software companies and growing in the LinkedIn space. It used to be like reactionary where you'd grow on Twitter or grow in other Discord servers or other circles. People are growing directly on LinkedIn. You know, like we've recruited a lot of talent directly from LinkedIn for LoopLess. And so it's a matter of like, you have to be inspired, and we want to contribute to that circle of inspiration. And that's what's led LoopLess to even become a thing, where I spent months getting inspired by other app creators.
Think I mainly got into this, this space of technology, through a lot of Zach's introduction. So Zach and I are in many of the same classes together, and one day he was talking about a screen addiction app that he had an idea for, and I was kind of intrigued by that, so I kind of asked further questions about it, and kind of what that led me to is a deeper understanding of kind of how tech operates. And uh, this is, we can talk about this more later, but we also attended this hackathon together in Canada, a couple weeks ago, called Hack the Six, and that kind of just brought me together with a bunch of other people, like-minded developers. I got to see their process, everything, but really, mobile app development came from my inspiration by apps like Cal AI, Opal, ScreenZen, OneSec, ClearSpace, all of these apps that I was already familiar with, but I was kind of missing something from them. I've tried screen addiction apps, and some of them work better than others, but a lot of the mobile development space, particularly Swift. I did a lot of research into Swift, and I particularly loved how easy it was to create kind of a custom built app, but still using Apple's like human guideline interfaces. All of that stuff came from my initial exposure to these screen time apps and kind of some of the limitations that they had.
It's like you get, when you surround yourself in tech, like going to a hackathon, like we only found out about Hack the Six. You might be able to see the MLH sticker. Like we got all this merch and all these connections from Hack the Six. We only found out about it because of LinkedIn and because of mutual connections there. It's all a matter of like you just find what inspires you. Like half of it is you have to pursue what inspires you, and then the other half is you have to be like susceptible to that inspiration. And you can like acknowledge that, but until you actually like work in an app company or create your own app company, you can't really like visualize that or experience it.
Yeah, and definitely, there's an organizational aspect to that too, right? As Zach is the main entrepreneur here, but obviously I've had experience with working with him on as a pretty high level in this company, right? I've had leadership opportunities with making guiding interns or guiding developers, and I've kind of seen how fragile it can sometimes be to run a business, right? There are certain timelines you have to follow, and when those get delayed, there's a certain kind of precarious state of affairs. We were kind of going through that, recently, because we initially planned for LoopLess to go live a lot earlier than it's going to end up going live, but there are certain challenges that you just have to deal with as a business, and working closely with Zach and a bunch of other talented individuals from mainly recruited from LinkedIn, but also throughout the North Shore area from our school, other people. Working with these people and getting to know them, getting to understand how they work, their workflow. It's really been a really big learning experience for me. Well, yeah. Another thing is like kind of I've gotten kind of a more real understanding of what you know project management looks like from not only like a technical development perspective, but also from like an organizational perspective, right? As a business, I wasn't only responsible for developing apps, I was also responsible for communicating status updates, for managing interns. When Zach was away, he gave me a lot of these CEO responsibilities, which involved kind of like guiding people, making sure that they gave me timely progress updates, setting deadlines, all of this. Experiences that I never would have gotten unless I had joined a company like LoopLess, and unless I had, requested and, worked hard to get such a high level position as CTO in this company. And, as high schoolers, I don't think the risk is as high, obviously, as it would be for, a professional entrepreneur who's, maybe later in their career. But, this kind of lower stakes environment has kind of really elevated my sense of what it means to not only be a part of a business, but also kind of help run it, help run that business too.
Exactly. I was in like an interesting place when I started this, in that I had joined another tech company called Electro Robotics. It's actually, I think, headquartered in Northwestern. So there's a lot of Northwestern connections that we have, like at the campus that we're at right now. And I had joined Elytra, I had joined Cal AI, and I had gotten tons of offers as like co-founder roles in other SaaS companies I haven't ever mentioned before. But it's a matter of like, you can turn down so many opportunities and you can feel good about yourself that you got those opportunities, or not even turn them down. Like I tried to work at Cal AI and I just couldn't make it work. And same thing with Elytra, where it's just very difficult. Like you can have so many opportunities and you can turn down some and you can try others. After a while though, you start to doubt yourself. You're like, can you even hold down an opportunity or get a new one? After so many like, after such a gap, not even a gap, like Caswire, I had grown Caswire to have 4 marketers on payroll, making videos every single day, literally getting a paycheck every month. Um, and I was thinking like, okay, it just maintains itself though. And if there's so many like such a long lack of new rules, you kind of doubt yourself. So when this started, it was a matter of like I was in Florida for spring break. I was able to like dissociate myself finally from being in Illinois and having like to remember the fact that like I turned down these opportunities, or I worked at some and it didn't work out, and Caswire was working out better, but it's already a business I was at anyway. And so when you're able to dissociate yourself, that's when it actually worked, finally. You have to like dissociate yourself to get these good ideas. Like we're in Northwestern right now. We've never been to this part of the Lakeville before. And that's what helps us be more creative.
Like getting involved with LoopLess has led to countless opportunities for me. With particularly like hackathons and stuff like that. But not only that, it's also just led to me becoming a better developer. Like I started out in computer science at school with APCSA, but I moved on from that and I started making my own side projects, but nothing big, right? I made like websites and I coded stuff for some of my friends who needed, particular like platforms or like applications and stuff like that. But never did I actually like involve myself in like a professional project like LoopLess has turned out to be. So I think I kind of, I didn't gauge the full extent of it at that point, obviously, but I saw the opportunities, the potential that LoopLess had as an idea, especially because it incorporated like therapeutic elements that I did not see being incorporated in other apps at the time, right? And so that kind of joining at that point very early on, it gave me a sense of freedom because I wasn't constrained by existing organizational processes or like guidelines or stuff like that. It really just gave me an opportunity to develop the app in a way that I thought would be, best, or that I thought would enhance my skills and also contribute to the world of screen time addiction. Right. So I think that, joining at such an early stage really just, ignited my creativity in the sense that, I had the opportunity to, explore some of these frameworks and or explore mobile development in a way that I wouldn't have been able to do at a later stage. I wanted to associate myself with this, not only because I saw the potential of the idea, but also because I thought it would give me a good chance to like mold something of my own, mold a creative project that may have a chance of taking off. Right at that point, I had no idea, but you know, the possibility of shaping something into kind of this awesome project really just ignited my curiosity, ignited my passion, for not only development but just like also just being part of the company and the culture. I just want to like kind of talk about a little bit of the technical challenges for a little bit. So we started off with this initial website. Zach encouraged me to get a bare metal server from this like site called reliablesite.net, and it was $35 a month. And at the pace that we were going at, we realized that it just wasn't, a good idea. It was just a waste of money to, spend that much money, even though we don't have an app on the App Store yet. And, what makes this so volatile as, a company is, of course, we don't have LoopLess on the App Store yet. That is our single biggest inhibitor as a company. But, that's why I want to take a little bit of time to talk about why that is. Why don't we have the app on the App Store? So, I think the biggest answer to that is the Screen Time API. the screen time API is basically what allows us to make an app like LoopLess. It allows us to put in the core functionalities like blocking, time limits, scheduled blocking, stuff like that. That all is done through the screen time API. But it turns out it's one of the least documented parts of Apple's framework system. Like, I could count how many articles there are like maybe 4 or 5 articles on the entire internet that I found useful for what I needed to do. And in addition to that, there are like a bunch of extensions you need to add to the app in order to make the functionality work, right? To track usage, you need this thing called a device activity monitor extension. To display user screen time, you need a device activity report extension. You need to circumvent like any cheating that the user might do, like trying to exploit inefficiencies or problems in the app to kind of get on their screen more. You need to challenge the user to avoid their screen. That is a huge problem. That is a huge a huge debugging process, right? Because there's so many bugs that can arise when you're trying to implement so many features at the same time, especially when you're monitoring other apps, you're displaying data from other apps, right? This isn't just like a single self-contained unit, right? This contains so much backend that has to be put in there so that you can manage other apps, and it's very difficult to navigate that when you have such little guidance from developer support. I remember for a long time we were seeking after this thing called the user authorization entitlement, which was only granted to us very recently. And that process was incredibly strenuous for both me and Zach. We contacted Apple support daily, trying to get this done, right? But they just, there's very, very little support for developers for the Screen Time API. So, that has been a huge hurdle for us that I was not initially expecting. But, we're getting closer and closer. The app is completely coded. We're just trying to get all of our extensions permitted and approved by Apple, but it's been a very, very challenging process to get all of that done, and kind of wrestle with the Apple support team about how all of this is going to be, how we're going to be approaching all of this. So many things that are just undocumented and developers have to figure out. You go on Reddit, you see developers who have no idea what they're doing. They're just in the same state as you. It's a pretty helpless situation. Right.
When you plan out for this kind of stuff, you plan for like, there's gonna be obviously unforeseen stuff in any kind of startup, right? It's very risky, but you plan for like a set launch date. You plan for a set like, maybe there's risk in the product being bad or the talent being bad or the market being more competitive than you thought. You don't really plan for like a month of hell and delays and issues like this. So in any sense, it was like every startup you have new trouble and you have new issues that you experience and you learn from that. This is like a whole different level, like a different dimension of issues that you can't even really plan for. You kind of only understand when you actually experience it. Like I heard from other people that it was difficult to get these entitlements, but it depends on the person, it depends on the time of the year, and just what Apple feels like for how long it takes for them to give you these entitlements. And so we had so many people interested in working on this that we had to tell people to stop talking about this at the end of the school year because there's just too much to get so many people interested in working at LoopLess. And now we've been so like calm that we thought, okay, maybe it'll be like a month of this calmness, and then we'll pick back up when the app goes in the app store. Apple delaying this by a month has completely changed that model, where there's still a lot of talent to be found, a lot of people interested in working on this, but it's a matter of like the type of talent that can thrive here is different from what that talent would have been 2 months ago. And then we're going to get back into a different mode in a month when this is going to be on the App Store, where we're so far along, like we're going public now because this can't be copied. It's going to take you, if you go and try to copy us, it's going to take you so long, it's going to be so unpredictable and so difficult that it's not really an issue for us. But it was such an issue for us now that like part of it's like, that was so difficult. And still we have all the other issues that a startup is going to face now, plus we had these other issues. But it's also like a learning experience now, where like the team is more resilient. We know like what's the lowest a startup can go while still retaining talent and still having a clear path forward. This could have been the biggest high school startup in the nation. It still might be the biggest, probably is the biggest in Illinois, honestly, especially in Cook County. Like, there isn't, like, if you are working on startups and you're in the Chicago area, please let me know. Please let us know, because we haven't been able to find a single other person. So maybe in like a metro area of like 9 to 10 million people that Chicago is, we're still like the biggest. We're still very proud of that, but it could have been so much more, and it's gonna still become so much more, but it's just not in this same time frame.
Yeah, and that's just been that's a huge kind of tragedy for us to experience as a company. But the reality is, the process of app development for something like this is unpredictable. There's just so many things you have to take care of, so many problems that have to be faced, both with communication with Apple and just like keeping the company together. And as Zach said, at this point, we've kind of experienced the lowest that a startup can go. Really, like, we've kind of stuck together as a team, right, as a company, trying to like deal with these issues. It requires a special level of communication on a technical level, but also on just like a pure, just like trying to communicate what the issue is. It's sometimes hard with all these like technical frameworks that you try to like. It's just it takes a lot of resilience to go through a state like this where we're not even on the app store yet. But the plan is obviously to get this on the App Store as soon as possible once we have our entitlements, once we have our capabilities granted by Apple. But, going through such a low period and getting the time frame, reset like this has, given us a lot of chances to learn. It's given us, we've learned the lesson of, budgeting time, right? Like, we initially, you can't plan something so optimistically, right? We were very optimistic about how this would turn out. We didn't consider the possibility of all these like entitlement delays and whatever that took so long and were so miserable to deal with. You know, there's just such a deep level of, how wrong we were about how long this would take. And so we've learned that it's important to budget time and, accurately depending on the technical requirements of your app, right? That we've seen plenty of startups fail simply because they didn't understand what it took, like how to budget time appropriately, right? They put their startups on faulty pathways, faulty timelines that didn't align with the technical requirements of what they were doing. And, it's very unfortunate, but we almost ended up that way. Like, this thing could have crashed, and, if we weren't resilient enough and if we weren't communicative enough, right? But, thankfully we still have interested people. We still have a completely coded app. We still have a bunch of side projects that we're doing. It's just that the time frame has been delayed to an unfortunate extent, but that's just the reality, right? The reality of working at a startup, the reality of, developing something that requires a lot of external management, a lot of debugging, a lot of communication with Apple support. It's just very, very teachable, a very teachable moment.
This is quite possibly the most difficult startup we could have ever made. I've worked or checked out hardware startups in the past. I've I've seen all of it. It's interesting to me to check out the different things in the startup space, and those are so predictable. Like, yeah, it can be hell to get a patent approved. It can take you years, but it's going to take you years, and everyone expects that. If you're working at a patent-based biotech startup, you know the process, you know the risks involved, so it draws that kind of person. When you're working at a high school startup, the bar is so low that I think that might have been why it was excusable to have all these delays. But this is like, it couldn't have been any harder, and we're cleared that now. So just to be clear, like, the issues with the entitlements, those are basically done. We haven't. There's like one last layer of approval. We already got the message back from Apple for that, so it's really gonna be so fast with that. It's practically there just isn't anything left. We've thought that there wasn't anything left for previous stages of this issue of getting more approval to go deeper into the phone. This is it. We've continuously attracted more people. We're setting up a blog now. We're setting up a podcast. We're going to continue these podcast episodes. We're building the sense of community. It's taught us the value of community, this like hellacious experience. So we're good now. Like, this screen addiction app is going to go on the App Store.
We have another developer at our company too, but we're going to be adding more people, and for not just that, but also like other apps that we're doing. We have apps that aren't even related to addiction, but we're just doing them as side products. We have a time management app. We have a bowling app. We have all sorts of stuff, and that's just that's just how we plan to be proceeding. And with all this new development talent that's going to be coming in months from now or even weeks from now, we have university students who are willing to help us. We have so many people, and I just think that working at LoopLess will become such a valuable experience for whoever decides to join. That when we get compensation going, obviously that's going to be an additional element, but just purely the IP aspect of this, right? Like the potential of an app like LoopLess, the potential of a holding company like LoopLess to make behavioral health tech, like for addiction and for all these other things, right? I think it's just going to be become such a valuable niche to exploit that talent is going to flock to us eventually, right? Once we have our apps on the App Store, once we're approved, and once we can, get enough testing to eventually supersede companies like Opal, right? I think that will be the point at which we will truly thrive, and we're hoping to get there, possibly even by September or October. So.
The bar is low for a startup. If you guys have an idea, you can do it. Like, we were just looking at a company called Tally.
Mm-hmm.
We had that idea in March. And we'll see if Tally succeeds. We can always just make our own Tally,
Mm-hmm.
But the bar is lower than you might think. And so not only have we we've cleared every bar about resiliency and talent acquisition, we're gonna lead the industry in these various fields, and it's gonna be great.
Yeah, I'm extremely optimistic, and as soon as we get this on the App Store, that's when we get the ball rolling, right? We've overcome some of our biggest hurdles with Apple support, managing and navigating the screen time API and all these frameworks, right, that are so little documented. Now that we've gone through that, we've gone through the lowest point we can have gone through as a startup. We are set for, I think we're set for, high opportunities, high potential. It's going to be excellent. And, we just really hope that anyone interested decides to join our startup and, get a glance into this, world of addiction and behavioral health.
You're in the Chicago area, you're like family to us, come with us.
Mm-hmm.
What started as a podcast, we're just trying all this stuff, It's cool. Nobody else does it. And I don't know why we do it. We just do it.
Yeah,
it works.
it's just, trying new things, seeing how they work, right? I think that's a good starting point, especially since this is our first episode, right? Like, we'll see how it goes. Just, I would say the biggest lesson we learned from this was just make sure you have a robust and maybe even a flexible timeline, right?
Yeah.
Because you never know what kind of technical barriers or organizational barriers you're going to go through as a company.
Exactly. So, yeah, thank you for listening. Check out LoopLess, beloopless.com. You can join our waitlist. DM me on LinkedIn. Connect with me first. You have to connect with me. Everyone comments on my posts. They're like, oh, let me join. You have to connect so I can talk to you. Okay? I don't know why it's not obvious, but connect if you want to work here. Reach out to us. Check out our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we're going to keep on posting. We're going to keep on creating no matter what. If it's at LoopLess, if it's at this podcast, we're going to just keep on creating stuff because that's what actually matters at the end of the day. None of this would exist if we just didn't create. Nobody was listening. And if you still speak, if you still create, then people start to listen afterwards. It's not a matter of you have to prompt yourself almost. And so we've done that. We want to prompt you. So, I don't know. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you. We had fun making this, and we're going to definitely make more episodes, depending on how you guys respond to this. But, yeah.
This is what it looks like from our perspective to walk all the way over here with our chairs. It's so annoying. There's construction going on, so you have to walk the long way.
Yeah, and we went across some grassy area that I definitely don't think we were supposed to be in. Why is there an actual beach at the Northwestern campus? People just go crazy.